So I did say I would do a follow-up. This tutorial shows you how to get campaign-like teleports to work alongside your checkpoint system from the last tutorial. Pretty short intro, huh? Well, sometimes all you need is to get right to the point. Speaking of, let's jump right into it. Okay, as for map setup, we have one thing. Considering this is like a continuation and a follow-up tutorial of my campaign respawns, we can, all the map setup and all that stuff is pre-done, which is why we are on the same map. So I will link that video into the description because you're going to need that in order to make this work. There is a way to make it work without the checkpoints or whatever, but I can explain that as we're going. But we're going to go ahead and place a switch because that's the only thing we need to add on to this tutorial, because it allows you to use a switch to teleport them to the switch, just like in campaign. Okay, with that out of the way, we're going to jump right into the scripting. If you'll notice, we're going to start off exactly where we left off. It looks a little different only because I rearranged some things, but it is the exact same order, the exact same thing. This is the last node that delete object from the previous tutorial, same here. And up here, I did add this. This is only to add a bot. This is just so I can test this out and show you it happening, because I can't really teleport myself the same way and, you know, show you what's going on. So to start this off, we don't need any events because we already have an event to base this off of. So we go to for each player. We're going to grab that node right there, place it, and then we're going to go to players and grab get all players. We're going to plug in players to the objects and go ahead and plug the for each player into that last node of your script here with the doorway, so we can continue on from there. We're just plugging and playing. That's what we're doing. Now we're going to go to objects transform and grab get object position. We're going to get this twice because we're going to get the object position of our players, all the players in the game. And I already have one here where I was testing it out. And I also have one down here, but I'll go ahead and delete these so that way you can see the whole thing. So I'll go ahead and place this here, and we're going to connect object to the person who went to the doorway, because that's what we're doing. We're getting the position of the player who entered that door. We don't got to work with position yet. That's coming in a minute. And we're going to go plug in this one into the current player, which means it's going to go through the list of all players in the game, and it's going to say, okay, I got this player's position. It's going to do its thing, and then it's going to go to the next player. It's going to get their position and do its thing. So what we're going to do now is good old math, and we're going to grab an absolute value. I'll explain that in a moment. I'm going to explain all these once I get them out here. We're going to get vector length, and then we're going to get subtract vectors. Oh yeah, a lot of confusing terms here, probably a lot of nodes I don't really use ever in my tutorials, but we're going to now because it's important. But I promise you, this is the way to do it. It's a far easier method. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to plug in, when we go to subtract vectors, we're going to plug both of our positions in. We're going to plug in the position from each player it goes through, and we're going to plug in the position of the player who went through the door. And what we're doing here is subtracting vectors is where it lets you subtract all three of the vectors, x, y, and z. You know, it's a 3D space. From each other to get the difference. So it gets the exact number of units as a difference between the two of them. And that goes into the negatives because it is a 3D space. You get to the negative vectors and stuff on the others, on the different parts of the map. So what we're doing here with the vector length is we're going to plug that result in, and that vector length is basically spitting out a number. What is the exact distance between all three of these? You know, if I had a graph to show you, a 3D graph, it would look like a line. Obviously, the vector length, it's the line, the distance, the length that this line would be is our vector length. And what we want to do is we don't plug that in. Don't do that. I was a big dum-dum there. What we're going to do here is this is the distance you want them to be before they get teleported. I'm going to do 75 because these distances are pretty small. And I'm not sure why it's like that, but 50 is like, I don't know, a scorpion and a half away. I don't really know how to measure in this game other than that, because the meters seem to be a little bit funky too. So anyway, this is how far you want them to be before the teleport happens. And you know what? It's okay. You can play around with this number to get what works for you, because all maps are different. You want to kind of play around and get the exact number. And once you do, you're good. And the numbers may differ between your different areas and doorways and stuff, so that's something to keep in mind. You'll probably want to play around with this a good little bit. So anyway, moving on, we're going to go to the logic compare, and we're going to just get the regular compare node here. And we just plug in result and length to operate A and B. Now we're going to grab a branch from logic. There we go. Plug it in. We're going to put it up here. And we're going to execute that branch per player. Because the condition is B greater than A. What that means is the vector length, or how far they are away, greater than 75 units? If so, which is our true, something's going to happen. And that something is what you would think. We're going to set object position, which is basically teleport the player. But it's just easier to do it like this. Go ahead and plug it in like that. Go ahead and plug the object that will be teleported is in here. So it's going to run through and get the players that need to be teleported and do that to them. The position, we're going to put the position here. We're going to want to move those players who are farther than 75 units away to teleport onto the player who entered the doorway, just like campaign. You want to make sure that the relativity is false, because true is always the weirdest thing I've ever seen when it comes to this, so it's just good to do that. And there you go. That will get your teleports just like campaign. And you can just, all this right here is a plug and play. You just go ahead and duplicate that. You can plug it in down here. And all you would need to do is just reconnect everything where they go. And then, you know, play around with this a little bit if you need to. That really is it. That's all you have to do. This will get your campaign teleports to work. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this, make it look real ugly for a minute. We're going to rearrange it, and then we're going to test it out, and then we'll get to the button. Okay, we rearranged, and we'll want to make sure to plug everything in the right way. Just like earlier, we plug in, oh, that's another thing to duplicate, is get object position, so don't forget that, because it's over here, so it kind of slipped my mind how it's kind of over here instead of in this plug and play right here. That's part of it. You're going to have this right here connected to this, so that way they can actually have the position to be teleported to. So yeah, anyway, going to grab the position, plug it into the operand B, and then the position that they teleport to is that as well. And then you're going to want to connect this to your script in the first place, and there you go. Plugged in and ready to play. So let's go ahead and give it a test, and I will go ahead and tell you that I have a little minor script in here. I still have the one with the rocket, but I also have one that whenever I mark, the bot will be teleported to the mark, so that way I can make him go further away from me to show the teleports, and then I can have him right next to me to show you how it won't teleport him if he's within a certain distance of me. So let's do this a couple of times. Let's give it a couple of runs. Okay, there he is. Now he's relatively close to me, but if he walks off there, see 50 units is about like right here. And so you're getting close to me? No, there he is. He teleported. See, that was 75 units. Which is weird. So let me go test it again. And this time I'm going to make sure he's right next to me. I'm going to place him right here. Go right there, buddy. And notice I walked through the door and he did not teleport to me that time. So let's go over here. He's going to be pretty far from me now. And he teleported right to me. And then, of course, if we want to double check to make sure that it doesn't teleport him. Yeah, he got teleported to me instantly since he was far enough. Okay, now he's far enough, we're going to, right here actually. And boom, no teleport. But we saw it work a second ago. So there you go, that's your campaign teleports. Like I said, 75 seems to be a pretty small number too, so you're going to want to play around with that a good bit. And then lastly, now we're going to do the switch, which is like 6 nodes, I think, in grand total. So we actually don't have that's why I saved it for the end, so we can just kind of splash it in and not have too much extra to worry about. So let's go ahead and throw that in here. We're going to go to Events, Custom, and grab On Object Interacted. There we go. And we just plug the object that is being interacted with into our switch. And like in campaign, the teleport happens on console interactions, even though the player might be right next to it. So that way the players all get teleported onto the user of the switch, no matter what. So we grab a for each player, plug that in here. We're gonna do the same thing, get all players, and it won't teleport the player who activates it because they're they're in the same position, so it wouldn't really affect them. So we're gonna plug it in like this. Plug in for each player. The objects are all players, and then execute per player, obviously, and then the object, which is the player that's going to get teleported, is all the players, and then position is to the, oh, we need to get that. That is a very important node. Get object position, super important, like all the time for this kind of thing. There you go. Just like earlier, you want to plug in the players as the object and get the position, so that way we can actually set them to that position. And there you go. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 nodes grand total. There you go. You would have to repeat this for each. You can copy it. That's what's great. You can duplicate it. Oh wow, that's ugly. I'm not even gonna worry about that. Let me move it down here. There we go. Looks ugly still, but good news is you can duplicate it. The only thing you have to change is your object reference here. You would have a second switch, right? Somewhere else in your map. Duplicate that, grab that other switch, plug it in here. Works flawlessly. No problem, no issues. So let's go ahead and test the switch out and wrap this thing up. So I'm going to go ahead and let him spawn in. I'm going to have him teleport to me. See, he was less than 75 units, so he didn't teleport. And that's fine. When we go over here, he's definitely more than 75 units away, so he's going to pop up right on me. There we go. And then lastly, we're going to go over here. And when I activate this, he'll be right on top of me. Boom. Just like that. There you go. So, congratulations. You now have what appears to be functionally identical campaign mechanics for respawning checkpoints and your teleports. So I hope this will help a lot of you with your campaigns, and you know, and everything's great because it makes it multiplayer accessible. So you don't have to worry about being single player if you don't want to. If maybe that was a big thing that you wanted to do, but you felt limited because you couldn't get this to work. Now you have the access and the tools to let your map be a multiplayer setting without it needing to be stuck without teleports and other things like that. And with that, your campaign maps can come to life not only in a single player game, but in a multiplayer setting as well. As a closing, I want to say, you might want to say your final words to the holy trinity of declare, set, and get squad variables, because I might have just found a way to make them obsolete other than situations where they are most certainly needed, and we may never need them again. I'll get back to you on those findings though. See you then.